What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The name of the show is Politics on My Mind, and I'm the host, Troy Griffith. Let's get the show started. It's going to be a good one.
All of you know who I am.
Yo, what's poppin', ladies and gentlemen? You're tuned into Politics on My Mind. I am the host, Troy Griffith. This is episode 191. If you would like to follow the podcast wherever you get your podcast, you can do so on SoundCloud, Google Play, TuneIn, YouTube, iTunes. Just go into that search bar, type in Politics on My Mind, hit that subscribe button. If you would like to follow the podcast on Twitter, you can do so at POMM Podcast. And once again, that's on Twitter. That's the Bluebird. And as always, today is Monday, December 7th, 2020. I'll say it again, Monday, December 7, 2020. And I would like to welcome you to the only political podcast for the hip hop generation. And as always, I have to tell you about the website. The website is politicsonmymind.com. What is that? Politics with an S on my mind.com. Politicsonmymind.com. Welcome back. I'm back. I'm live. It's December 7, 2020. As I mentioned, the podcast was off because the Monday after Turkey Day, I couldn't make it. I would be damned if I was going to rush and put together an episode. So I'm here. I'm back. I'm live. And I guess what, man? I don't know if it's just me. I'm just over the heavy plate, right? Needing 20-inch dubs for your plate and all that good stuff. I can't do it anymore. I don't like to be feeling filled up, but just give me a little bit, give me a handful, I'm good to go. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that I'm a runner, so I don't want that entire run to go to waste. Like, I just ran for no reason. I ran and then I'm going to disadvantage myself and just eat all this food. I just can't do it anymore. So just give me a little bit, you know what I mean? And I'm good to go. I don't want to disrupt the zen that I had. I want to be zen. What Big Sean said in his song, Zen the fuck out. The name of the song is ZTFO. You know what I mean? I don't want to be zen the fuck out running, for my sanity. It puts me in this great little mood, just enjoying the run, the breeze. Now it's getting cold. It's not the same, I got to admit. But you throw all that zen out and you come with all this food. I just can't do it. Eating on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, leftovers. I just can't. Give me one plate. I'm good to go. The rest of the food, everybody else could take it. That's how I'm moving. So there's that. Oh man, what is it? We have 3 to 4 weeks left in the year. It went by super fast. And before I came on, always go to check to see what episode number I'm up to because I forget, right? Like it just doesn't come to me so quick all the time. Like I know exactly. So I went to go look and I saw, I'm like, episode 190 was the last episode I did. This is episode 191. And I just want to say, in 2 more months, it will be 5 years I've been doing this podcast. You know what I mean? And I just want to take a minute. It reminds me of when Snoop Dogg was doing his speech when he got his star on the Walk of Fame. Walk of Fame? Yeah, Walk of Fame star. And in Hollywood. So I was like, I got to thank myself. I want to take a moment to thank myself. I'm proud of me. I don't like when people tell me they're proud of me because like T.I. said, you have to take your losses the same way you take your wins. So I feel like if you tell me you're proud of me, then when you come back and be like, I'm disappointed in you, I have to carry that the same way. So I kind of reject that. Like, no, don't tell me you're proud of me. Just be happy for me. But somebody might argue, but when they're sad because you did something bad, it's follow me. Make it make sense. Make it make sense. But nah, man, I'm real happy that I get to share my passion with, even if it's one person, and not just share my passion, but teach you something. Hopefully you've walked away, in any of the 190 episodes and said to yourself, well, I didn't know that. Right. So, I'm just happy to be doing it. I hope you appreciate it. Even if it's one person. Look, I end this episode, every single episode I end with Tupac, right? I might not change the world, but I will spark the mind of someone who will, right? So that's what's important to me. You know what I mean? Let's start the episode. I mean, it's already started, but let's jump into full gear. I'll be remiss if I don't mention the fact that COVID is real. The coronavirus is real. Wear your mask, wash your hand, social distance. Think of your Latino brother. Think of your Latina sister. Think of your Native American brother. Think of your Native American sister. Think of your black brother. Think of your black sister, right? So we know that these three groups of people are dying at an alarming rate than any other group. You understand? And we need to think of them. We know that those three groups are contracting this virus at an alarming rate than any other group. And it's because of one thing, racism, right? For too long, and by the way, none of this, what I'm saying, is written. This is just off my head, some freestyle, Biggie Small shit. You know what I mean? Check this out, that, for too long, we've been told that, or given the idea that someone is racist if they say the N-word, right? If they say they don't like a certain group. But what has escaped us all this time is that racism is really in policy. It always has, and it always will be, until the people, and I'll steal this from Ayanna Pressley, that the people who suffer the most pain, until that time comes, they are making that decision. That's when this will change, right? When you have a group of Black, Latinos, Native Americans in power making the decisions, and they know if they make a decision, it's going to affect their community directly. And I don't mean a Clarence Thomas. I mean people that understand what really touched their community. Then these things will change. But it's my belief, my personal belief, that certain people, and I will say our white brothers and sisters, that let's not be remiss that the people who are in power at the moment are in control of the government, people like Mitch McConnell, that when they found out, Mitch McConnell being a white man, when they found out that this virus kills Black, Latinos, and Native Americans higher than any other group, that's when they said, oh, for real? I'm good. You know what I mean? So with that said, wear your mask, right? And a couple of minutes ago, I talked about whether you learned something from this. I was watching MSNBC on a Sunday. I usually don't watch the episode, but my eye caught the TV because there was a woman on there I've never seen before. And I was like, oh, wow, who's this? And as she was speaking, I paused. I looked at the TV, and I was like, huh, I never seen her before, as I said. So I end up stop and I listened to her. This woman, Cristela Alonso, she was on MSNBC with Alicia Mendez, John Leguizamo, and two other men, and all Latinos. And they were having the conversation about just, building a bill is going forward in Congress for a Latino museum. So I was like, wow, I didn't know that, right? So I stopped to pay attention. And she talked about, as we're in coronavirus, she's like, where am I going with this? Walk with me for a minute. As we're in coronavirus, wash your hand, wear your face mask, keep your social distancing. If you can't wash your hand at the moment, use a hand sanitizer. And as I'm listening, she said that a Latina invented the hand sanitizer. I was like, I didn't even know that. You know what I mean? So that little gem right there, and I had to go look it up. I was like, wait, did a Latina invented a hand sanitizer? Sure enough, Lupe Hernandez. Go look her up like I did. I was like, wow. So, things like that we are not, we as a whole cannot be wiped out from American history. You understand? Latino Museum, African American Museum, Native American History Museum, all those things are there. We cannot be wiped out. And when I see things, there's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I believe it was, a football team, and I guess there are fans there. And I saw this picture of this entire team and the fans, the cheerleaders, maybe 100 people. And it was like a Where's Waldo situation for me. I was looking for where's the mask? Where's the mask? No one, I think, accounted maybe 2, maybe 3 masks. Shout out to the people that say mask is, right? Like they add, what word do you pluralize with ES? Like if you say buses, right? Like shout out to the people who say mask is. I've heard that now. Wait, did you pluralize with the ES mask? It's mask with the S. Just say mask, right? Just do that. But shout out to you. Judging, but not judging. You know what I mean? So Yeah, yo, like these, like it was like three masks out of all these people. Majority, when I say majority, like 99% of the people were white folks. And again, we've been taught to think that racism is you saying the N-word if you're a white person. No, 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 no. Racism is in policy. It always has and it always will be until, to steal, as I mentioned earlier, what Yana Presley said, until the people who suffer the most pain are making the decisions, then things will begin to change. And yo, wear your mask. And as you know, again, it's like a trifecta for Black, Latino, Native Americans, because as there are virus swirling around in the air, you know, being transmitted from person to person, if you don't wear your mask, you don't keep your social distance, you don't wash your hands, all that we have to deal with. Then on top of that, there's the economy. Jobs report came out that November, there were more jobs lost again, right? Hundreds of thousands of jobs lost. And those jobs aren't in the banking sector, right? Wells Fargo, the CEO of Wells Fargo, I pick on them because they're racist as fuck. The CEO of Wells Fargo isn't losing his job. It's the housekeeper that comes in at the local Wells Fargo, vacuum the floor, clean the bathrooms, spray the plexiglass, right? You know, do all those things to keep the people who come in make 100,000, 150,000, 400,000, 300,000 a year. I know I went forward and backwards. Stick with me, right? It's those people. And what about this thing of, I will forever stick on it, that student loans need to be wiped out. And I'm a little biased in this, of course. I got them. We all got them, right? So, and stop thinking of student loans as only young people. There are people who are in their 50s and 60s with student loans. That's a different conversation. I saw this article over at, is it the Wall Street Journal, I believe? I don't know why that keeps popping up on me. I feel like they're reading my algorithms, where it said the class of 2020 looks for work. And I don't want to go too in depth in it because low key, Wall Street Journal, they limit you on what you could read. So I only got to read but so much. But, you know, when you think that student loans affect, you know, Black and brown people, Native Americans, all of that, you know, larger than any other group, because once again, of this thing called racism, right? And here they are coming out of school, college, can't find a job. And not because you're coming out of school, mean you're coming out of college, you're coming out of high school, and maybe you didn't want to go to college, right? And you said, yo, I'm going to go ahead and take a gap year, right? And now you can't find a job. And maybe you were that, you know, your household was probably waiting on you to come out, get a job so you could help them. But because leadership failed and saw that this thing was attacking Black, brown, and Native Americans, you know, at that level, and sorry about the pause. I just, you know, I had a brain freeze for a minute. I was like, wait, what did I want to say? That was a long ass pause. I think that was like a 2-second pause. That never happened before. But, so this was happening, fell back, and now it's a double whammy for, you know, marginalized communities. We got the COVID, we got the economy. So I just want you to think about, the people. And I said this before, if there's something you can do over the holidays or at any point, if you could give $1 to an organization, I don't know, pick an organization and give to them, everything helps, man. We all could do something. Like, you know, I see food lines, right? And there's this young lady, she's a global editor at Washington Post, Karen Attia. I love what she does. Like, she did an article a couple months ago, I think it was last month, and she wrote about how, you know, as a writer, as she was writing about something that was happening in another country, she would do so in a way that with certain words. So I guess what I'm saying is this. Usually when reporters write about another country, they use very colorful words, right? You know, this person's a dictator. This person's trying to overthrow. Is trying to be a coup. But yet in the United States, when reporters write, they try to be objective, right? And play with a dictator, right? And she always do that. Say, yo, if we were writing about another country, this is how we'll do it. But instead, she do it as the United States. And my entire point of saying that is this. if we were looking at another country and we saw massive food lines, we would be judging them like crazy. But now we turn on the TV and at least once a week the news show that. And I don't like the way the news do it. Like they pornograph or they make porno out of bread lines. And for me, I almost feel like, I get it that you want to show it, but then when you go down and you talk to people individually and ask them like, why you're here? Like, I don't have a job. It's COVID and leadership failed this, right? So when I see that, I think that, and I will never ask you to do anything I wouldn't do of myself. Even if it's $1, give. Whether it's a campaign, if you don't have $1, your time, if you don't have your time, you don't want to go out there and you don't want to go out there and jeopardize your health, call somebody, call an elderly person, check on them. Because I know when I worked the elections, I was talking to this woman, I forgot her name. She was 78 years old. And she said to me, she was one of the volunteers. She said, I'm not supposed to be out the house, but I was starting to get depressed. And I was like, wow, right. It hit me. I was like, wow. It's like I've forgotten population. Like if they're not our grandparents, like we're not thinking about the elderly. So if you can't do that, reach out to your local representative and say, your delegate, your council member, your Congress member, and say, what are we doing for the elderly? Is anyone calling them? I know my local legislator, he was doing that. And I volunteered, I signed up, and all they wanted you to do was to call the elderly, check on them and say, do you need anything? Right. They never got back to me, I believe, because they had so many volunteers that signed up. But I signed up because I was like, wow, something so simple. And it was at the middle of the pandemic. I believe that was like in June or July. And I was like, yo, if this is something I can do without leaving the house, but it makes a difference to someone else, I'll do it because it was the right thing to do. So with all that said, COVID, the economy, class of 2020, which I did not talk about. And I promise you, every single week, I was like, I got to talk about the graduating class of 2020. Shout out to y'all. We used to think that 2008, 2009, when, that class was coming out of college, coming out of high school, they had it hard. I think this group have it hard. My little brother graduated high school this year, and he went from he told my mom, he said, I graduated high school to be a child because he has nothing to do, nowhere to go. And it's just that. I had a note right here. I had to do notes because I had so much shit to talk about. But I promise you that this first 17 minutes was no notes. But I got to do this quick because I don't want to make this an episode that's 2 hours long. But look, I had this little note that said churches are trying to reopen. Real quick, I want to talk about this, that the Supreme Court actually ruled against New York because they had to, the Supreme Court said that they could not close down the churches, right? In a Supreme Court opinion where it says right here, Supreme Court, Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn, New York versus Andrew Cuomo, governor of New York, right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I do want to say this. And I used to listen to this guy on one of the radio stations I used to listen to, Cardinal Dolan. He used to sound so down to earth. He's Catholic. Clearly, he's a cardinal, Catholic. And I used to be like, wow, this dude is awesome. He makes me want to come to his church, the way he was speaking. But what I've learned over this time, and I know I'm probably going to turn a lot of people off with this, religion is not looking good out here these days, right? The fact that I read this article where this woman said that her church was telling her, and she didn't want to give her name because she feared retribution. And she said her church was telling her, oh, what are you scared of? Come on back into the church. And I was like, what? And the fact that churches aren't thinking a way to evolve, they're out here looking real funny. They're out here looking like weirdos. And I know somebody out there is going to be like, not my church, not my church. People, look, if it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. Let's be adults about this, right? But that church, the Diocese of New York, that's fighting to open up back so people can come in when easily majority of the country, those who can, are working from home. I think you could worship from home and donate the same way. Learn how to evolve and say, hey, here's how you can give, right? If it's $1, whatever they pitch is, that's how they could do it. But when I saw that, I was like, you know what? Side-eyeing y'all. You know what I mean? I just wanted to mention that to you. And I want to tell you about a very important person. He passed away, Mayor Dinkins. And I want to play a clip for you. And I didn't realize I was going to go on that long. So I'm just going to play this clip real quick. I think this news clip will do him a justice. And I'm going to go ahead and play it for you. Give me about like 30, 40 seconds. And I'll put this together for you real quick. And so without further ado, David N. Dinkins, first black mayor of New York, first and only black mayor of New York still, which is kind of, again, side-eye, but I wanted to pay a tribute to this man. Once again, here goes.
And this morning, the city is in mourning. Former Mayor David Dinkins, a political giant and barrier breaker, has passed away. He was 93 years old. With more on his life and legacy, here's our David Usher.
Our new mayor, the Honorable David N. Dinkins.
He was New York City's first and only African-American mayor.
I see New York as a gorgeous mosaic.
On January 1st, 1990, after the tumult and tension of the Ed Koch era, David N. Dinkins took the oath. He pledged to New Yorkers he would not just be a history-making figure, but a unifying one.
This administration will never lead by dividing, by setting some of us against the rest of us, or by favoring one group over others.
But long after he left office, Mr. Dinkins knew his mayoral legacy would be debated, contested, critiqued.
Given the time to reflect and make judgments, I'm sure there were many things I would have done differently.
Defenders say he never got enough credit for things his administration set in motion. The turnaround in Times Square, getting thousands of more cops onto city streets, and avoiding a state takeover of the city's troubled finances.
Nelson Mandela.
A high point for him and the city, Nelson Mandela's 1990 visit to New York, his first U.S. stop after being released from a South African prison.
David N. Dinkins, as mayor, had Nelson Mandela come to New York after, as the report said, being released from a South African prison. Like, think about that. David Norman Dinkins, he was born on July 10th, 1927 in Trenton, New Jersey. He passed away on November 23rd, 2020 in New York, New York, otherwise known as Manhattan. Listen, when he was mayor, I remember seeing him on TV, and I remember seeing this black man. I remember thinking to myself, he always looked so smooth, right? I didn't have the consciousness to put it together. But as I got older, I realized his impact. He has a book out and everything. You can go read it for yourself. It's called A Mayor's Life. I haven't read it, but I said, because, my list, if you see my book list, you would judge me. It's long. And, it's definitely on my list to read, but go read his book and find out about him. And, there's a part of that news clip that made me pause for a while. I'm like, black leaders always got to explain their legacy. And, meanwhile, there's monuments of people who owned other people as property. Like, think about that for a minute. I want to tell you about another blazing civil rights leader, trailblazer, Bruce Carver Boynton. I won't play a clip. He inspired the 1961 Freedom Rides. And one thing I've learned, and I've mentioned this before, that when we listen to people who don't have our best interests at heart and they tell us about history, they usually tell us about our leaders, the soft things that they did. Like, they make him sound so soft and kind, like I have a dream, as if Dr. King is only I have a dream. He's so much more than I have a dream speech. But when they tell us about the Freedom Rides, I inspired the Freedom Rides, right? It's so much more to that. But Bruce Carver Boynton, take a time to go check him out. There's some clips on YouTube that could, tell you who he is. Bruce Carver Boynton, once again, last name is spelled Boynton. He was born on June 19, 1937 in Selma, Alabama. I've been to Alabama. It's a nice place. I really liked it. He passed away on November 23rd, 2020. Bruce Carver Boynton. I wanted to tell you about those two people. And staying up with blackness, I want to tell you about a young lady that I remember reading her, I guess it was a blog that she had. And I used to read it and I was like, yo, like, this is cool. This seemed like real down to earth. And, you know, followed her. I'll see her pop up. And then she started to come on MSNBC AM Joy. And I started to see her. And, I'm an advocate of always, having people speak to people who they can relate. And what I mean by that, it's very important that you see people who look like you. Look, I'm a black male, right? But that doesn't mean if I see a black woman on TV, I can't relate to her. If anything, it makes me tune in even more. So when I saw this news of her and another gentleman I was following, or I've been on my radar since about 2008, 2009, I used to watch him on Morning Joe. Back then, he was, he's part of the crew. He wasn't the crew, if you know what I'm talking about. And when I'm speaking about, this is over at blackenterprise.com. I shocked you. You thought I was going to say like Washington Post or something. And I'm speaking about Tiffany Cross and Jonathan Capehart will join MSNBC list of weekend anchors. That's right. Tiffany Cross, she's MSNBC's new anchor on Saturdays, and Jonathan Capehart will take over the Sunday time slot. This is super important. I always knew she was going to get it. I mean, it was only right. Like, the writing was on the wall. I kept saying it. And I think she's going to name the show Crosstalk. I'm not sure, but please, if you're not doing anything on Saturday and Sunday between the hours of 10 to noon, check them out. You want people that will speak to you. And the reason I chose this Black Enterprise article, because when I first saw the article on telling me about this at Washington Post, which I read a lot, it said MSNBC gives show to Tiffany Cross and Jonathan Capehart. And I was like, give? Black people, they're not giving anything. We work for the shit we get, right? You don't get anything for free. And before I did the show and I was preparing, I was looking for the article. I said, let me find another article with a better language. And I came across Black Enterprise. So I'm happy to share that with you. So, as I said, if Saturday and Sunday between the hours of 10 a.m. to noon, after I finish my run on Saturday and Sundays, I eat my breakfast, I get myself together. It's pretty much the only thing I watch on TV, to be honest with you. I probably get 2 to 4 hours per week of TV. Much of my life is in books and newspapers, and that's it. I'm not gonna sit here looking down on people that watch TV, but it's just that's that. Something else. Remember I told you about our Latino brothers and sisters and our Native American brothers and sisters, and we must always think of them. We must not think of ourselves as one. We must think of ourselves globally, right? Because guess what? You have Black Mexicans, right? They're Black Dominicans, right? They're Black Cubans. Like, the diaspora is bigger than we think it is. And what I'm going with this is, according to Vox.com, a federal court just reinstated DACA, and the implications go far beyond immigration. And what DACA is, the Deferred Action Childhood Arrivals. And what this is basically, it's saying, I'm going to break this Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, right? What this is basically says is this, that let's say you're 2 or 3 years old and your parents come to this country undocumented with you. You have no recollection of this. You're going to elementary school, and as a New York, I could tell you this happened. I know people this has happened to, right? That you go to elementary school, you go to junior high school, you go to high school, and then now time it comes to enter, quote unquote, the real world. And your college is saying, oh, we need this document. You want to travel, and the college said, oh, you need this document. A little sidebar, Family Guy did an episode about this. It was, years ago. I think it was like 2-3 years ago that Peter found out he was born in Mexico. It was it was so complicated, but it was stupid funny, right? So you don't know. So you're sitting there going through life. You have no clue. Here you come to move on with your life, and you find out mom got to tell you that hey, we came here as undocumented immigrants from Haiti. We came here as undocumented immigrants from Jamaica, Guyana, Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, something like that, right? We came here in the 80s and the 90s. You're like, wait, what? So now what DACA says is if that happened to you, you were on the 16 years of age at such and such time, you can have a path to citizenship, right? So former President Barack Obama, who we'll talk about a little later, what he said is this. He did an executive order on, I believe it was in mid 2012, that said, begin accepting applications for citizenship from these people. And he wanted that program to be pushed, right? So he signed that executive order that say, yo, these people can become dreamers, if you will. And what that said is, if that happened to you, you came here as a child, unknown, you had no clue. You're 4 years old, 5 years old. You don't know what your parents did, right? You can become a citizen. So the racist dictator that's currently sitting in the White House, he said, no, we can't do that, right? Because remember, he's a white nationalist. He's a white supremacist. So he only wants people that are coming from European countries, right? Remember, there's currently a Muslim ban, so on and so forth, right? So the Supreme Court said, not in these words, but this is how I read the article. Because you all were too dumb to do it the right way, it's illegal the fact that you try to stop it, right? So basically, here's what happened. The racist dictator in the White House installed an acting Department of Homeland Security secretary, made him an acting, Chad Wolf. And what Chad Wolf did was say, yo, we're going to stop this, right? We're going to stop these almost over 500,000 undocumented immigrant children who came here to live and work here. We're going to stop this. But what they didn't know is, since he was illegally, the irony in this, think about this, right? Since he was illegally installed in the Department of Homeland Security, think about this, you can't make that ruling because your appointment is illegal. Illegal, ILLEGAL, right? You can't make that determination. So, Mr. Racist Dictator puffed his chest up. Oh, you can't do that. What do you do? What do you do? We're going to go to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court said, fine, you could bring it here, but here's what the deal is. That order that you say that DACA needs to stop, it can't happen because acting Secretary Wolf, right? He was installed illegally. So guess what? An illegal secretary, an illegally installed secretary, right? Or some would say not lawfully installed, as Judge Garofis ruled in mid-November that Wolf, quote, was not lawfully serving as acting Secretary of Homeland Security under the Homeland Security Act when he issued the memorandum on July 28, 2020, right? Thereby, according to this article, cutting the legs out from Wolf attempt to water down the DACA program. If Wolf is not the acting secretary, then his July memo is void. The irony in this. So here's what happened. The United States citizenship, I forgot what's the I stand for? Come on, help me out. The I, USCIS, right? They can now start accepting applications again because this fool didn't know what he was doing. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, they can start accepting applications because guess what, ladies and gentlemen? These kids had no idea. They were children. If they want to, quote unquote, become Americans, so be it. And if you have a problem with that, right, I want you to talk to me about your grandparents. Tell me where your grandparents from. Italy? Okay. Tell me where your grandparents from. Ireland? Okay. Oh, I get it. If you're against this, you're sitting there saying that, but they came the legal way. Did they? How you know? Were you there? Okay. I see. But here's the thing, and I've shared this with you all before. there's an article, How the Italians Became White, right? So your grandparents came here and you're against this. Like, we can't have open borders, da-da-da-da-da. But it was okay that when your grandparents came and they became white and they assimilated to America, you could go to New York Times, How Italians Became White. Right there, there's the article. Don't get mad at me. So what you want to do, because you disagree with something like this, you say to yourself, you want to pull the ladder up because you got a chance to do so. You don't want nobody else to do it. Oh wow, you're such a poor person. You're so soulless. You care about no one but yourself. Your grandparents were Italian and your grandparents were from Ireland, and you just came to America. You became white, and you assimilated to this country. Now you don't want anyone else to have the opportunity you've had because you became white. You assimilated. And as in the word of Paul Mooney, you have the complexion for the protection. And this is the part where my childhood friend would say to me, not all white people, Troy, just the racist white people. But unfortunately, what happens there is even the good folks stay quiet because silent equals complicity, right? So just think about that. These kids came here through no fault of their own, and no one owns this land that is not Native American, right? I said that right. So if you're not Native American or Native Indian or Indian American, or as they say, the first American, if you're not the first American, the first citizens, however the case, whatever the language is, you're kind of looking like a fool when you speak. So let these people do what they do. And one of the things I always want to talk about, and I always remember this, before we got a racist dictator in the White House, a wannabe Hitler, don't get it fucking twisted. That man he's very problematic. That man wants to be a dictator. He wants to be president for life. The way he's moving, take him seriously. It's not a joke. And I'm going to keep repeating this book, America's Hitler Model. That book I'm reading, oh my goodness. I'm like, wow, we dodged a motherfucking tomahawk. You know how people say you dodged a bullet? Now we dodged the motherfucking tomahawk with this guy. And and here's the thing, right? It made me think. I was watching, I'll talk about this a little later. I was watching the debate with Kelly Loeffler and Raphael Warnock on CNN, and one of the reporter, Lisa, I think her name is Lisa Ram, awesome. She was awesome on there. And as Kelly Loeffler, the current senator from Georgia, and she's only there for she was only there for 2 years. She was appointed. And it said, it got me to thinking about the lost cause, right? And the way she was talking about defund the police and calling Raphael Warnock, a radical liberal, whatever she was saying. She kept repeating, right? So, and I thought about it. I was like, it was white women who pushed the lost cause. Like, look that up, the lost cause. And it's because of white women because it was a daughter of Confederate soldiers who were like, yo, we got to praise these people. These people that owned other Africans' property, we have to praise them. We need monuments. We need you to name roads and buildings after them. And I'm sitting there like, yo, it's all in front of us. So although Donald Trump is leaving, come January 20th, 2021 at 12 o'clock or 12:01 p.m., the mentality, the atmosphere, the dictatorship-like moves that he left us with is not going anywhere. And I say all that to say, before he took office, what I'm about to tell you right now is what I wanted to always spend time on. I thought I was making a podcast to come on and talk about, I was going to tell you about, how the government run how-tos, right? What's a bill? It was going to be real corny, right? To use an old New York term. This was going to be like the lamest podcast ever. It was going to be boring. I was going to talk about boring stuff. I was going to be so calm. I was going to tell you about books I'm reading and this and this. It was going to be informative. And I say it was going to be corny and boring, in a nice way. But because, I had to do some learning too, and this man came in. I had to go left with the podcast. I couldn't come in here and be telling you how to when there's a person that's trying to literally be a dictator. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. I've been doing some reading, like outside of books, like reading different articles from different people. And they said, I've read articles that said, not even dictators, when they lose an election, for example, let's pick a European country or something, because we're always picking on brown countries and black countries, right? Or African countries. If in a European country, if a person has been serving for, a long term, 13 years, 12 years, whatever the case may be, right? And they get voted out, even they leave. So what he's trying to do doesn't even happen with dictators. So what he's trying to do, he's really trying to take over power. Make no mistake. But the thing I'm afraid of is that what happens when the next Donald Trump is successful? What happens when you have a race for a senator, a governor, and the race is like 10,000 votes, and that governor, that senator says, I'm not leaving? Chances are they're going to be a white male. Just putting it out there. 99% sure it'll be a white male. Because the same way we are descendants of Africans, they are descendants of Ku Klux Klan people. They are, and this is saying nothing bad. It's not, right? It's not casting on every single person. The same way that, that we all have black skin, which tells us we came from the continent of Africa, is the same way that if you are third generation American, not all, but there's a good chance that your ancestors fought in the Confederacy. It exists, right? You go all over this country, and I saw on a CNN special, The United Shades of America, with W. Kamau Bell, and he goes to these places and talk to people. They'll be like, yeah, my grandfather served in the Confederate Army, something like that, right? We forget to think of them that way. So therefore, we kind of give them a pass. And I kind of lost my train of thought where I was going with this. But yeah, I couldn't come on here and talk to you about this, why this man is trying to be a dictator the entire time. So I had to do something different. But what I'm about to talk about here is my entire point of what I was saying. This is what I wanted to talk about. Right? I was going to tell you about little bills that's moving in Congress, amendments, so on and so forth, right? But these two things I'm about to, well, no, three, because I'm going to tell you about the other one, the Second Look Amendment. And what this is according to DCist.com, right? The Second Look Amendment, what this says is this. The D.C. Council's Judiciary Committee voted Monday to advance a number of bills, including measures to permanently ban ghost guns. And what ghost guns are is this. It's like, the 3D printer thing. So like it makes a gun and there's no tracing. There's no serial number or anything like that. Also, strengthen D.C.'s red flag law. So in other words, if a person feel like you have a mental health issue and you own a gun, they can issue a red flag, call the authorities, so on and so forth. Clarify how citizen initiative and referenda can get on the ballot. So basically, citizen initiative. So let's say you want to, decriminalize marijuana in D.C., which is already a thing. Making it easy to do so. If you want to get a referendum on there that says, us as the District of Columbia will not pay for a stadium for a football, baseball team, or whatever, you can put that on there and give more young offenders the chance to petition for early release from prison. So the action on a half a dozen bill comes ahead of the council's final legislative sessions of the next year, next month, right? But one of the biggest things about this bill is this: the Second Look Amendment. This is what I want to speak about. The Second Look Amendment, it allowed convicted felons who committed a violent crime before they turned 25 to petition for early release after they have served 15 years in prison. And I'll stop there, right? So no. I'll go on. The bill would build on existing law known as the Incarceration Reduction Amendment Act, which targets incarcerated felons who committed crimes before they turned 18. I'll stop there. I want to say this. I'm happy for this bill for one thing, or this act for one thing, this amendment for one thing, right? I was all over the place. This act, this amendment, this look, this second, right? So I'm happy about the Second Look Amendment Act for one thing. it doesn't say non-violent offenders. Every time I see that, I'm like, there's a loophole. Because when you hear non-violent offenders, you say to yourself, oh, okay, people that did not commit murder or rape, right? But what you need to know that laws are much more complicated than that, or much more complex than that. And I'll give you an example, and it's the example I always use. So let's say this. The year is 1990. No, let's do this. The year is 2003. You're 19 years old. In the trunk of your car is raw. In the rear view's the law. 99 Problems. Y'all didn't get that? It's that song. In the trunk of the raw, got a raw trunk of the car, right? So look, in the trunk of your car, you got some raw. You know what I'm talking about. And in the glove box, you have a firearm, right? So you're driving, you get pulled over, and the police officer says to you, do you know why I pulled you over? I was doing 55 and a 54, right? 99 Problems. Come on, y'all, stick with me, right? And you tell him, yo, you can't search me. You can't do anything. I ain't passed the bar, but no, little, right? Let me stop. Let me be serious, right? So, all that happens, you get arrested, you go to court, you know what I mean? I forgot what age you said you are. Okay, the year's 2003, you're 19 years old, this happens to you, you go into prison, right? But when you were 18, you got into a domestic situation domestic being girlfriend, family member, friends, whatever, you have a domestic relationship, right? You know each other. So you got convicted on the domestic charge. You were charged when you was 18 years old. Now, here it is a year and a half later, you're now convicted on a gun and drug charge. What could happen now is these two things are separate, right? The gun is in the glove box, and somebody might be listening to this. I'm not a lawyer. Somebody might be listening to this and saying, that's not how it works. On the books, that's not how it works. But if it's in front of a judge, it could damn well work out like this, right? So follow me now. 18 years old, you got convicted of a domestic charge. 19 years old, year and a half later, you got convicted of a gun crime and drug crime. You go serve your time. And that wasn't my pause. That was the mute button. I hit it by mistake. So you go serve your time, and now you are considered a violent offender. Why? And I know this personally because it happened to a family member. You petition the court and you say, I want to get released. And they pull up an old domestic charge on you and say, what about this? This was a violent act. They can play those games with you, right? So majority of the criminals are not violent offenders, but they can find ways. Here's another thing. That gun is in the glove box. It's not readily available to me, right? Or the gun might be in the trunk. It's not readily available. That's a language. It's not readily available. And I have to say, I'm not an attorney. I ain't passed the bar, but know a little bit that I can talk my shit, right? So I'm happy that it said this and it understands that there is science that proves that the brain does not develop until you're 25 years old. And it's given these young men, majority black, young men and young women an opportunity to say, I was a child when I committed this crime. Scientifically, I did not understand what I'm doing. And I don't like the word they can petition for early release because once again, you leave it in the hands of a judge, which, there's an old saying, 10 out of 9 times, I know what I said, but follow me, 10 out of 9 times, it's not a judge of your peer. You understand? So I was happy about this. This is an opportunity for us to start reimagining, how we look at criminal justice. Once again, it was, Michael Moore, he did a documentary, Where Will We Invade Next? And I always remember he was talking to someone that committed a murder. I'm not going that far, but I want you to think of it this way. He was a murderer. The person had been convicted of murder, and he was in the kitchen next to an axe, and he was like, I forgot what country they were in. He was like, we don't do it like that. We do 10 years. We do our time. They rehabilitate you. They give you jobs while you're in there. We can't keep locking people in cages and telling them when they come home, you figure it out without a support system. I was watching Politics Nation with Reverend Al Sharpton, and Guy Fisher was released. Look his name up. You learn something. Guy Fisher was released from prison after 40 years. You release him out in the world and you say, go figure it out. Sidebar, Guy Fisher earned like 4 degrees while he's in there. He now has a PhD, but that's not majority of the people, right? So I just wanted to mention that. Another one I want to talk about, and it's looking like this episode is going to be an hour and a half, so here we go. The MORE Act. I was excited when I saw this. I remember when I was on Prince George's County Young Democrats, right? I sat on the board, vice president of membership, you know what I mean? Right? So, and I remember speaking to this guy. He's a puss. I mean, he's soft. I was going to say something else. He's soft with the T. I was telling you, he was a clown. If I see him today, it's on site. But that's my issue, not your issue. Stop the thugger stuff. But yeah, I tell people I love to laugh, man, because I don't like me when I'm getting angry. I'm not Incredible Hulk when I'm angry because I'm only 5'1", but my mother always tell me when you get upset, you turn into 6'2". It's weird. That's why majority of the people who know me, including my family members, there's no one. I'm gonna go on a limb here and say there's no one outside of my siblings who has ever why did I say hoof? There's no one outside of my siblings who have ever seen me upset, like angry, right? Because I just, it's just, well, I'll say this. Let me rephrase that. Anyone that has saw me upset outside of my siblings, the chances are very slim. Because I spend most of the time laughing. I like to laugh. I love a good joke. I love talking shit. Me and someone just, having cool ass banter, talking shit, going back and forth and laughing. I love that shit. It's nothing like just talking shit with people laughing and having a good time, right? But so I said, I don't want to ever come off like I'm a tough guy. It's just, I'm not. I'm far from it. I'm from the environment that created, me, that allowed me to be very cognizant of my surroundings and, not to be vulnerable at all times. Be understanding of what's going on around you. Don't play. That's it. That's a better way of wording it. Don't play with your safety. So I don't ever want to come off like a tough guy. But I remember when I was on Prince George's County Young Democrats, I was talking to this young man, and he said, this was like 6 years ago, and he said, I'm against marijuana. And I was like, what? Like, what? He was like, I need to hear more, do new research. Little did I know, he was trying to big himself up to run for office and shit. Some real corny shit. You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? Black and brown people are going to jail for this. But this, according to NBCnews.com, which is true, I saw it, I was watching it live, the House of Representatives, they passed the historic bill to decriminalize cannabis. And I like that they used the word cannabis and not marijuana, because through your history, marijuana was it was a word created because they wanted to stigmatize it, right? Make it sound very Latino, so very Hispanic, very Spanish, right? Like they wanted to scare you, like marijuana, right? Like it's just so that's what they were doing. So I like the fact that they used the word cannabis. And what this is, the MORE Act, once again, another reason I like this bill. And the House voted on Friday that it's weird because the headline is marijuana, but inside the bill they use the word the headline is cannabis, but inside the bill they use the word marijuana. The Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act, or the MORE Act, which decriminalizes cannabis and clears the way to erase nonviolent federal marijuana convictions. The Senate is unlikely to approve the bill. The reason the Senate is unlikely to approve the bill because as right now, the Republicans are the majority in the Senate, right? Unless they have a race on January 5th, a senator race on January 5th. If you live in Georgia, you know anyone in Georgia, go ahead and have them register to vote, have them request their ballot, and have them vote if they want the Democratic Party to get the majority. I don't see why you wouldn't. But another important part of this bill, and I'm going to repeat myself, right, that this so the problem with this one is to erase the nonviolent federal marijuana convictions. I explained that earlier. I'll just focus on the Expungement Act. The part of it with the expungement is that if you were arrested for marijuana 10 years ago and now it's a federal conviction on your record, here's the thing. That federal conviction is gone. But here's the deal. A lot of times when people were charged, And let's say you had 2 charges, and the marijuana conviction or the marijuana charge actually increased everything else on your charges. So let's say, once again, I'm not a lawyer, but let's say you had 1 charge, and then you got the marijuana charge or the cannabis charge. Now that plus that, so you're getting, I don't know, 10 years for the marijuana, and the other one is carrying 4 years. So you're spending 14 years because of that 1 cannabis charge, right? So, and I know I said that marijuana was created as a stigma, whatever, and I'm using the word, but I'm using the word because it's like colloquial, like something that we all use as opposed to cannabis outside of the rapper. So I'm very aware of what I'm doing. I'm not doing it to be disparaging. So the marijuana charge actually increased the time you did in prison. So now let's just say you're doing 14 years and you got convicted 4 years ago. The minute that is expunged from your record, you're coming out of prison. So now this is putting Black and brown and Native Americans back into society, and not sending them to prison for 10, 15, 20 years. There are people who did life for marijuana charges, right? 3-strike rule type shit. So this is important. This is what progress looks like. And these things are happening because you have Cori Bush, Ayanna Pressley, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Jamal Bowman. These people are going to Congress and showing up for their community. These people are representative. Debbie Allen, these people are representative of the people who suffered the most pain. Now they're at the table and they're putting it, granted, there are 435 members in the House of Representatives and you have to convince 434 other people. But the more that we get there over the years, this thing will change, right? So this is very cool to see. And the vote broke down like this. The vote broke down of the count. 222 Democrats were in favor of passing the MORE Act and 6 were against it. 5 Republicans voted in favor of it and 158 voted against it. So you had 227, 227 people said, nah, we good, we'll pass, right? So you're going to get that. You're never going to get, you rarely get 100% of these people. So out of 300, let me see, and 6. So out of, let's say, for this number right here, I know they said it 435, but of the 391 people, 222 Democrats, 5 Republicans, they said, cool, that's what's up. Let's do this. You know what I mean? 222 Democrats and 5 Republicans said, let's do this. So progress comes in due time, right? It takes time. Now, continuing along that line, we'll talk about, we talked about the police. The Prince George's Police Reform Task Force submits recommendation. And what this is this. Remember, I told you the first time I testified, then the second I testified, it's finalized. And what this is, if you follow the episodes, what this is, the task force created by the Prince George's County Executive, Angela Alsobrooks, that task force has come to terms. That work group has, said what they needed to say. Of the people who testified, the person that headed that task force was Maryland delegate Alonzo Washington of District 22. He's a Democratic incumbent. I know him. Cool suit dude, you know what I mean? Like any other Black dude, cool, always rocking a suit. Cool, down to earth dude. Earth, pronounce the TH. Cool, down to earth dude. So it was 6 months. They was examining every aspect of the police department. And what they came up with this, he said, we drastically need change. We have challenges in our police department, unquote. And this is the thing about politicians. They tend to say words that they skip around. We'll talk about that a little later. A new office for integrity and compliance to create independent oversight. The department doesn't have now. Established county residency incentives for officers. And what that says is basically if you live in the community and you're working in the community, we're giving you money. That's basically what it says, right? Use of force and anti-racial bias training, creation of a mobile crisis team. I'll stop there. So the mobile crisis team is this. If someone is having a mental health breakdown, instead of someone with a gun, you send someone with, a psychologist, a social worker, someone with experience, right? The school system is spending $17 million a year on security personnel to arrest our students, according to Delegate Alonzo Washington. So, and he's saying we can redirect these funds, right? And also, the report also recommends eliminating record expungement for officers. So here's what happens. Something happens at this department. They go to another department in another city over, get a job, and it's like Men in Black. The shit is just wiped out from their record. They want to end that. So I just thought I'd update you on this and make it known. Here's the deal. Also, I'll talk about Mark Kelly. He was sworn in as Arizona's new senator. He will finish out John McCain's term. Senator Martha McSally, who never won an election, she was appointed twice. She lost that seat, and he is now the new senator from Arizona. He will serve for 2 years, and as I mentioned, in 2 more years, he will run again. If the name sounds familiar, if the name doesn't sound familiar, he is the husband of Gabby Gifford, and she was a congresswoman, and she was the victim of a gunman's attack back in, I believe it was 2012 in Tucson, Arizona. She was out there talking to her constituents. This individual, Gabby Giffords, this individual ran up and basically, tried to assassinate her. Shot in the head. She recovered. She's gun crime, getting shot in the head is nothing easy. This is back in 2012. It was the top of the year. I'll never forget it. I remember when it happened. I was watching the TV. I was following the TV close. She was outside of Safeway talking to her constituents, and this is what happened. And our road to recovery has been long. And if there's ever such anything as redemption, having her husband be the senator is a real good look for. I'm sure that he will push forward gun control and all that good stuff. So that's really good to see. On the way out is Lamar Alexander, Senator Lamar Alexander. I believe he's from Tennessee. And I remember this senator because during the Affordable Care Act, he gave President Obama, when they was trying to pass it, he gave President Obama hell as if he was going to agree with him and vote for it, but he wasn't. He was just being a racist white man to me. You know what I mean? It's just simple and plain. Like, you voted against giving people health care, and you knew it was going to benefit the poor and the marginalized communities. These people are, we cannot be afraid to call them what they are. If they're racist, they're racist, right? I'm 5'1". Some people tell me I'm short. Guess what? I'm short. Fuck it. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not 6'1". I'm not 6'2". It's just simple as plain as that, right? Okay, so there's that. And just to be fair, I don't want anyone to say I'm not being fair. There's a problematic Virginia state senator. His name is Joe Morrissey. Long story short, look this guy up. Joe Morrissey. He's being charged because he went inside a polling station to campaign. I'll leave it there. This man is very problematic. He thinks like he's above the law. He lost his bar license. It's just, and he's a Democrat. He's a Democratic state senator from Virginia, Joseph D. Morrissey, Morrissey. Look him up. He's problematic. And I see in his future that he will probably switch parties. That's how problematic he is, right? He reminds me of Joe Manchin. He looks like a Democrat, but he talks like a Republican. I'm just saying, right? As I mentioned, the Georgia Senate race is January 5th. It's Raphael Warnock is challenging the incumbent appointed senator, Kelly Loeffler, and she is she's once again, she was appointed. She was not the Republican's choice, but she basically dumped all her millions of dollars on the Republican Party, and they said, I guess I like you. You know what I mean? And then you have John Ossoff. He's going up against David Perdue, and I'll play a little bit of Raphael Warnock's debate last night with Kelly Loeffler, and we'll just talk about that for a little bit. Here goes.
Well, that's incredibly sad, these comments that he's made. I mean, first of all, there's not a racist bone in my body. I have worked to bring communities together my entire life.
So this racist bone in the body thing, it's a weird thing to say, right? And I wanted to play that because I wanted to play her clip. Raphael Warnock, Reverend Raphael Warnock, he is the pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. If you don't know what that is, what church that is. It's the church that Dr. King preached at, right? So that's how influential this man is to that community. And he wasted his time debating this woman because she was completely a robot. What you heard her say is what she repeated the entire time. Why she said radical liberal. He wanted to defund the police, and he's not a Christian and he doesn't worship God. The man is a pastor. Like, how much closer do you get to God? I know early in the episode I said something about religion, but these two are two different things. But how much closer do you get to God or be a man of God if you're not a pastor, right? Like, if you're not a pastor, you can argue that you could question their religion ethos, right? But if he's a pastor, no reason to question that. But this is the lie that the Republican Party have came up with. They're pro-family, they're pro-life, and this and that and this. The Republican Party is the party of racism. It's the party of the white nationalists. It's the party of white supremacy. It's the party that does not care about the country it serves at all. If they did, they would have did everything and they want to stop the current incumbent in the White House to stop him from doing what he did from day one, right? So this notion, there's not a racist bone in my body, right? It's problematic. I read the book Stamped from the beginning. I'm sure I've shared it with you all. And here's why it's problematic. Because racism isn't in your bone. It's in your mind, right? When you're racist, it doesn't come out of your bones. It comes out of your mind. You understand? So she's right. There's not a racist bone in her body. She's right. There's no racist bone in your body. But Michael Eric Dyson put it the right way. And this is his entire tweet. He said, quote, "There's not a racist bone in my body," unquote. How about the muscle memory of anti-blackness? How about the neural circuits that carry prejudice? How about the blood of bigotry that flows throughout the body? Politics. It's not the bones of racism I'm worried about. It's their bodies, right? Excuse me, I did that wrong. It's not the bones of racist I'm worried about. It's their bodies. I was like, whoa, like that hit, and I said, like I tweeted out from the POMM podcast Twitter account. I tweeted out like, no racist bone in your body. You know what I mean? Like what? Like, what are you talking about? You're making no sense at all. Like, she was just making stuff up, right? Like, who says that? A racist person. And how it goes. If you have to tell me about your black friend and you're not racist, chances are, I'll let you finish. Chances are you're probably a little racist. You understand? So it's just, it's just, I'm searching for the word disappointed, but you could no longer be disappointed in these people. Because like I told you earlier, it was white women who pushed the lost cause. It really was. So it's no longer being surprised. And like I said, what I tweeted out from the podcast account was, Kelly Loeffler, racism doesn't start in your bone. The question is, are you anti-racist? And I gave credit to Dr. Ibram Kendi after reading the book and, learning about that. So that's very important. And, Raphael Warnock had a great line. I wish I could find the clip. You know what? I'm going to try to find the clip. I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to YouTube it. I'm going to see if I can find it. But he had a great line where he basically said, like, yo, she was appointed and the people of Georgia are disappointed because all she's been doing is allegedly insider trading and getting away with it and not being held accountable for what she did. And I thought that Raphael Warnock, he hit that point home. I couldn't find it, but here's what he said. Raphael Warnock said, she's the, quote, unelected senator of Georgia. She was appointed and the people of Georgia have been disappointed. It was awesome. It hit home. It was, as they say in New York, say less. Like it was perfect. It was nothing left else to say. And I want y'all to understand something, that we are, and I'm going to get into, I should have did, you know what? I'll flip something around. I got this. Don't worry. I got it. I was going to switch the title around like President Obama on Defund the Police because I was going to go into something, but I'm going to do it anyway. Here's the deal. I'm not going to switch the title out, but I'm going to talk about this. So here's the thing. I should do it. I should switch instead of Biden-Harris transition team, But I don't want to, I don't want to seem clickbait, but you know what? I'm going to do it, man, because I'm not a clickbait type of podcast, but I'm going to switch the titles around because the way I want to do this, I want to, talk about this. So I'm going to switch the title around. There's no way for y'all to know, but through transparency. All right. So I'll do this. Here's what I'll do. I'll talk about President Obama comment on defund the police, and then I'll go into the Biden-Harris transition team, right? So here's the deal. We are in the fight. This is a fight of a generation. I remember PBS did the documentary Reconstruction. There's the civil rights era, right? The fight for human rights. All these civil rights leaders who are fighting for human rights. We're in that fight again. And that fight is up on January 5th. That regardless what President Barack Obama said on a podcast, right? And I'll get to that in a second. The fight is to dismantle white supremacy and white ideology. President Barack Obama isn't the enemy at all, right? We can have different opinions, but we always got to uplift that black man. And I've made a promise to myself that I am not going to disparage him. I'm going to always consciously disagree with him, but I'm not going to disparage him because of what I said. Our black leaders always have to explain their legacy. Meanwhile, people who owned other people, Africans, as property get monuments, schools, streets named after them, right? I don't see no rush to put President Obama up as a monument, right? So I want to understand something. If you're coming here to hear me disparage President Obama, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to differ on opinions with him and the way he do things. And guess what? I'm almost in no position to do that because the work he has put in, I'm not even on stage. I'm not even on step one. I'm not on his level. And it's okay for me to say that. I don't make myself any less by doing that. You understand? This is a man that we should hold up. Like this is, if you have kids out there, he's your grandkids' Black History report, right? Remember when you were a kid and you wrote Black History reports? Your grandparents lived with those people. You understand? So you have kids who write book reports about him, kids who go crazy when they see him. I will always hold him up there, right? Because I refuse, what's that Jay-Z line? They gave Cassius the shakes, right? And it's like, like they always take down our greats. It was on a Holy Grail album, right? So I'm not going to take down the great, but President Obama is not the person we should be going after. The number one strategy is this. It's gaining the majority in the Senate so President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, now Senator Kamala Harris, it's winning those two Senate seats with Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff to getting that agenda done. The second look amendment, get that on the federal level. Get the MORE Act that was passed in the House, get it passed in the Senate and have it on the desk for Joe Biden to sign it, right? The lynching bill, the anti-lynching bill that's currently in Congress, get that going. The George Floyd Justice and Police Act, get that on Biden's bill. So President Obama saying defund the police, right? Yo, he's of a different generation. Yes, he was president in our generation, but he's of a generation. There's an article over at the Washington Post, and there's an article over the Washington Post by I need this article to come up, and it's just my luck. It's by Charles Blow, and it's not Washington Post, the New York Times. Charles Blow, he said, Obama's curious cautiousness. That's the title of the article. He's a great politician, but he's not an activist. This article was written on December 2nd, 2020. In it, he says, the politician can unify, but the activist often divides. You understand? He ends the article with this. He says, speaking about activists, but in their approach, the activists are right. I have no problem with quote unquote defund the police. I know that it means to reallocate funding so that social services and policing are properly weighted. If people are offended and quote unquote lost because of that, they were actually lost before the phrase was uttered. Charles Blow, great, used to listen to him too. When I say used to, I mean watch programs. He would come on. The programs I used to watch no longer come on. So, but I kind of jumped ahead of myself. I want to play you the clip that got everyone upset about what President Obama said. So I'm going to play the clip. Already explained it, but I'm going to play the clip. So without further ado, here goes former President Barack Obama.
If you believe, as I do, that we should be able to reform the criminal justice system so that it's not biased and treats everybody fairly, I guess you can use a snappy slogan like defund the police, but you know you've lost a big audience the minute you say it, which makes it a lot less likely that you're actually going to get the changes you want done. But if you instead say, let's reform the police department so that everybody's being treated fairly, divert young people from getting into crime, and if there's a homeless guy, maybe we send a mental health worker there instead of an armed unit that could end up resulting in a tragedy. Suddenly, a whole bunch of folks who might not otherwise listen to you are listening to you.
So look, it's two sides. I'm going to play another news clip of, this is Representative Joyce Beatty. I hope I'm saying her last name correct. Her last name is Beatty. She's a representative out of Ohio, right? So, out of Ohio's 3rd district, right? She was elected back in 2013. So here's the opposite of that, right? You have two different, one former president, a current member of Congress, current congresswoman, and just listen to how what she's saying about what President Barack Obama said, and then I'll elaborate. Here it goes.
Absolutely out. We have a big tent. There will be some individuals where that works for them, or that is their ideology, that they believe we should defund the police department. I think we're all saying the same thing. While words matter, terminology matters most. The core of it is we need to reform the police departments across the nation. Every day you turn on the TV and you see another person who has been shot. And not just shot multiple times, shot in the back, shot while they were lying on the ground, shot while they were in the car with their children, and there was not imminent danger. So do we need to readdress, reform, reallocate, and look at how we're addressing the reform of our criminal justice system, how we're looking at the reform of our police department? Yes. Now you have to remember, it was just a few months ago that I was pepper sprayed when I was out peacefully protesting. So I know what it's like to have unnecessary force.
We do know that former President Barack Obama, before he became senator, before he became a state representative, he was a community activist, right? So what he's speaking to, I'll put words in his mouth. He's basically saying, we're going to lose white people with this language. And on my notes for talking about this, I kind of jumped over it, but on my notes for talking about this, I mentioned, that former First Lady Michelle Obama, she had the Let's Move campaign. And what the Let's Move campaign was saying, it was saying, let's stop feeding our kids all this sugar, basically all the fast food. Let's put the onus on schools that they should start feeding our kids healthy meals and saying, instead of giving the kids pizza, give them something healthy, fruits, vegetables, lower calories. And I even had a news clip that was saying, they were complaining that, the food looks so, with less calories. But instead of meeting her halfway and say, okay, this is how we could do it, let's work together. I remember even the ignoramus, Sarah Palin, and she went to speak to somebody. She was on stage, and she had like cookies or donuts, and saying, we don't need to be told what we can eat. But things like these affect communities that need it the most, right? So feeding poor and marginalized communities, nothing but sugar helps no one. It creates a long-term debilitating effect on them, right? So former First Lady Michelle Obama with the Let's Move campaign was given pushback. And all she said, let's move, be active. Even the NFL came in with 60 minutes of play. They had that campaign, which they did away with, which shows they're full of shit. I don't see it as much as I used to, maybe because of coronavirus, but right. So she had the Let's Move campaign, and she called flack for it. So you could take this and remix it any type of way. You could get Puff Daddy. Well, by the way, where's Puff? I thought he had the Black Party or something like that. Where's Ice Cube? Where's these people that cared about politics? Where are they a month after? Today's a month later of the election. Almost a month later, over a month later. Anyway, so I think tomorrow's a month. Check this out. So. You could get Puff Daddy. He could put Mace on it and, change the language of defund the police. What Barack Obama is saying, I'm putting words in his mouth. This is not, he didn't say this, but it's more or less, you're scaring off certain white people with this, right? Let's be honest. Jim Clyburn is saying the same thing. I can't think of the Republican Party, right? In 2016, when the person who's the president now, when he said grab women by the P, that had they lost, they would have been sitting around, oh, maybe we shouldn't have said that, right? Even if they would have lost, they wouldn't have said that. They won, and they still didn't condemn that. They condoned it. Matter of fact, they pushed them on. Say more racist shit, right? Say more ignoramus shit, right? But I can't think of another political party that will win the White House, right? They won the White House. What is this? Jennifer Rubin, which, by the way, full disclosure, I'm not a fan of her. She really pushed the Iraq war real hard, but I just wanted to say that. She has an article, op-ed over at the Washington Post, and it says, the size of Joe Biden's victory matters. And I'm sorry, one more clip for you. This is Maria Teresa Kumar talking about the size of Joe Biden win. It's a lot of numbers in there, so just bear with me real quick. Here it goes.
Let's talk about how this math works. President-elect Biden earned about 80 million votes, nearly 7 million more than Trump and 11 million more than Obama did in 2008. In 2008, the U.S. population was about 299 million. Now it's more than 330 million, an increase of roughly 31 million people, and ineligible adult voters are up an estimated 25 million since 2008. So even if you split it right down the middle, that's 12.5 million new voters each. So it's easy to see how Biden's 80 million votes surpassed Obama's total.
So understand, right? The Democratic Party, they won the White House. They literally have the opportunity to win the Senate, the majority in the Senate, right? Because if Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff win, then that means Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be the tiebreaker. The one thing I didn't like about this op-ed, she goes into basically working with Republicans and all that good stuff, and you should use this or whatever. But you could take a gem from a little bit of foolishness. And I will say this, that if it's anything, Joe Biden has a referendum. He won 51% of the votes, 7 million votes, 7 million more votes than the current incumbent, right? You know how hard it is to be the incumbent? For 4 years, I've been saying he's a two-term president because in order to be the incumbent president, the party has to turn against you. Jimmy Carter. The party has to turn against you. George H.W. Bush, right? The party has to turn against you in order for you to win the White House, in order to be the incumbent president, right? That's the key part right there. Some would argue they did not turn against him. They stuck with him. You understand? Joe Biden came in and beat them. I don't know any other game where numbers are played where they look and say, yeah, you won, but we should probably really look at what we did and how we worded it. And what Jim Clyburn is saying, what President Barack Obama is saying is that we lost some races and it kind of hurt us, right? But here's the thing. You won the White House. And I read last week what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is saying. It's your campaign game. It's not the defund the police. And you know what did Charles Blow say in that op-ed? He said, "Yo, if you have to explain it to them, they don't want to be explained to, right?" He ends it with, "If people are offended and quote unquote lost because of that, they were actually lost before the phrase was uttered." And I'll end with this. It's not on politicians to explain every single thing to you. That's not their job, right? They say something, you don't understand it. What JT said in that song, Google's your friend, bruh. that Pusha T featuring Jay-Z, Google's your friend, bruh. Pick it up. You use it for everything else. You're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on TikTok, you're on Snapchat, whatever people use nowadays. You're on Twitter, you're on every single thing. Take the moment and go do your little research for yourself. You understand? So if you're quote unquote lost about something, go look it up, right? You know, like if you say to yourself, if you've lost your job, heaven forbid somebody in your family contracted COVID, right? All that is happening. The senators, Mitch McConnell is sitting on a bill that will give moratorium to eviction, continue for student loan forbearance. All this is going on, right? All that is going on. You're in that household. You can't afford your bills. You may be facing eviction, but you just can't come across, what does defund the police mean? You just don't understand that. So guess what? You're going to go ahead and vote because I'm scared of a term, but I may face eviction. In reality, you weren't offended by defund the police or afraid of it. You just put one thing over the other. And I'll go through this very quickly and I'll say this. I want you to think how much of your life you go through your daily life and the police is not involved. I'm not condoning or condemning a defund the police because there are activists who are doing the work out there and I'll let them speak. I'm not going to shut them up. And that Charles Blow op-ed was about the fact that, the way President Obama have been politicking ever since he left office. Once again, I'm not going to disparage the man. I'm good with him. You know what I mean? I'm going to differ on opinions with him. I'm going to challenge him when necessary, but I'm not going to down talk him. He has earned that right that you don't down talk him. You can differ in opinions. I don't have to disparage him. You understand? But there are activists who are out there. How much of your life you go through, how much you go through your daily life and there's no police. You stop at a stoplight when necessary. You stop at a stop sign when necessary. You don't always run through the red light, do you? You don't see all these cars stopping and you be like, you know what, fuck them, I'm going to go around all these cars. You're not on a highway doing 100 miles per hour every single day when it's a 50 miles per hour. No, some of you up there like, shit, I be speeding. Yeah, you probably do a 75, 80, in a 50 miles per hour. You're not flying down that highway doing 100 miles per hour every single time. And also, you're not speeding every single time you get in the car. Trust me, you've got a couple tickets, be it a red light camera or you got pulled over before, right? These things happen that, we could understand what activists are trying to say and not criticize them. And as I said about Jim Clyburn, if you don't understand, engage, ask questions. And I don't understand how a party wins the White House and still say, we got a problem. AOC said it. It's about spending money. It's about campaigning. Up your digital campaigning. It's that simple. But I'll get over to Biden's transition team. This is according to NPR. I'm going to end with NPR. So here's the deal. According to NPR, Biden names Health Secretary COVID czar, other key members to health team, right? So, and I'm going to jump over to Yahoo. The diversity happened over here. There's there's Simone Sanders, there's Karine Jean-Pierre. I'm going to talk about that. We're going to keep it black right now. Black and Latino. We're going to do all that, right? There's Simone Sanders. She has a new spot. She has a new spot in the administration. There's Karine Jean-Pierre. If you don't know these people, please get familiar with them, right? I want you to learn who they are. They're going to be in your face for the next 4 years, possibly 8, right? So I want you to understand this. She is, first up, we have Simone Sanders. I don't know why I keep stuttering. She was named chief spokesperson and senior advisor for the vice president-elect Kamala Harris. You understand? Simone Sanders, she's done the work. She worked on, I want to say Bernie Sanders campaign. She then switched sides. Is it really switched sides? She just took another opportunity and worked on Joe Biden's campaign, and here she is. You have Karine Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre, she is now, she will be She will be the deputy White House press secretary. And that is the thing. Look for these women, pay attention to them. And I want you to understand that it's a very, I hate the word diverse, like, you know what I mean? But it's a very black situation going on over here. Also, this is according to Essence.com. Another Shuwanza Goff named Deputy Director of the White House Office of Legislative Affairs. Biden-Harris administration continues to name diverse appointees. And what you have here is the latest is Shuwanza Goff. Goff is a native of Mechanicsville, Virginia. She's a graduate of University of Tennessee and American University, a familiar face on Capitol Hill. She served as floor director since 2013 for the House of Representatives under House Majority Steny Hoyer, making history as the first black woman to hold the position. Goff determined which bills came to the House floor, set the legislative schedule, and helped craft the overall House Democratic agenda. What we have here is a young woman who knows how government works. And President-elect Joe Biden named her as the director of the White House Office of Legal Affairs. There's that. Next up, we have, according to NPR, Biden said in a statement that he will nominate Xavier Becerra. He is currently the Attorney General of California, and he will now be the Health and Human Secretary for HHS. He would now be the Secretary for Health and Human Services. He was, I think, previously he was a congresswoman. He was in California 34th District, but now he has been tapped to lead HHS. Also, I'm telling you, there's so much here. And, a lot of people are giving flack because they're like, oh, it's not enough diverse people and so on and so forth. And it's like, give them time. Like, he just started this week right here. He will be announcing the Attorney General and I believe the Defense Secretary. So give them time and it will happen. But as it start out, look, Biden never ran as a AOC. He never ran as a Ayanna Pressley. He never ran as a Rashida Tlaib. He never ran as an Ilhan Omar. And I say all those things very respectfully, meaning he was always center, right? He's continuously saying, I'm going to work with the white nationalist party. Not in those words, but he's that guy. He's continuously saying, I'm going to work with these people because in his mind, he still think he's dealing with the same people from 30 years ago, when in fact, that's not the case. And I need him to rethink that a little bit. But once again, give him time. Give him time. We got to be easy not to pile on, but at the same time, we can go ahead and we can critique, right? But also, he will nominate Dr. Vivek Murthy as Surgeon General. Way better than the person we have right now that's just, following along. Murthy faced pushback when Obama nominated him for the job after the NRA Associated raised alarms about his support for an assault weapon ban. I remember this when he came in and said, gun violence is a health pandemic. And they got mad at him for telling the truth, right? This is the party these are the people that you're working with. You know what I mean? And that's what I want President-elect Joe Biden to think of. You're working with unreasonable people. But, last but not least, Marcella Nunes Smith. She will be, he's named her the director of the Equity Research and Innovation Center. Excuse me. She's currently the director of the Equity Research and Innovation Center of Yale School of Medicine. She will lead a new task force aimed at reducing disparities in response, care, and treatment for COVID-19. This is all what we've been all waiting for. We would like the people who save, as they say, the people to steal Ayanna Pressley, the people who experience the pain need to be at the table making the decision, right? And that's really all it needs to come down to. I'm excited about this. The people that are on there, they seem to be very, very personable. They understand what's going on within our society right now, and they are here to meet the moment. And I could not have been more happy for the picks. As I said, some people are disappointed so far, but guess what? There are multiple black people in there, right? They are in there. And if you have these, you know, these black women faces, these black women voices that I hear, these are black women that will speak for other black people. They're not going to get in there and pull up the ladder, as I talked about early in the episode. These are people that would make sure their communities are represented, and when necessary, they will bring the people within their community that needs to be in there to have that discussion. And as I said, let's all be patient. You know, there was a time I was criticizing when I first began paying attention to politics through policy. I was criticizing President Barack Obama's administration as the transition was happening, right? But I was new to politics and I was understanding. So I was trying to understand, and now I know better. When they say, you know, when I was a child, I spoke as a child. Now I'm not a child. I don't speak as a child. I maybe messed up that biblical verse, but I'm no Raphael Warnock. But I do want to leave you a clip of Linda Thomas Greenfield. She's been nominated to be the U.S. ambassador, and if confirmed, she will be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. So if confirmed. But I want to leave you with something pretty cool that she talked about. Gumbo diplomacy. I want to play you that clip. So here goes.
I've often heard you say how all politics is personal, and that's how you build relationships of trust and bridge disagreements and find common ground. And in my 35 years in the Foreign Service across 4 continents, I put a Cajun spin on it. I called it gumbo diplomacy. Wherever I was posted around the world, I'd invite people of different backgrounds and beliefs to help me make a roux and chop onions for the Holy Trinity and make homemade gumbo. It was my way of breaking down barriers, connecting with people, and starting to see each other on a human level.
What did I tell you? These are people that they will be there. Linda Thomas Greenfield, a black woman, she will be in that position, right? And she will see other black people and bring them in with that gumbo diplomacy. You understand what I'm saying? Bring them together, because I want you to understand when she mentioned gumbo, right? She didn't say, I made gumbo for them. She said, no, I invited people from other backgrounds and I had them come and we made this dish together and did the Holy Trinity. Come to find out it's the ingredient she was talking about, right? I know nothing about gumbo and I've never had it. I'm not from Louisiana. I've never eaten gumbo, but I'll say this, right? What she was explaining is that, as I said, everyone that's from a bit different background, come make this with me. And once we make this, we sit down and we eat it together. And once we sit down and we eat it together, we're going to talk. And while we were making it, we learned about each other. And while we sit down and talking and say, I can go back and say, oh, you mentioned your wife, you mentioned your husband, you mentioned your partner, you mentioned your significant other. How's the kids? How's your grandparents? How's your parents? You build a diplomacy, right? You build it. As you were making that food, you were building diplomacy through it, not only through policy, but through humankind, right? And that's what these black women in this office will be doing while they're in there. So everyone that's getting upset very early and saying he's not doing enough, bear with him. And don't discount the black women, the black people that are in there, that somehow, because they're in there, they won't allow other people to come in there. This is not a Omarosa thing, right? This is not that type of situation. You heard what she said. She's going to bring in people from all backgrounds. That's a black woman from Louisiana. She's going to make sure other black people get seen. I'm sure of it, because I've never heard that before. I've never heard that story told like that, where someone bring their experience and share with other people in that way. We all know, if you know, whatever part of the country, whatever part of the world you're from, there's a dish in your culture that may not be shared around the world. I'll give you an example. In my culture, you know, right? Guyanese people, Caribbean people, we have roti. Some people are like, what's that? What's roti? Right? Nah, I don't want that. I don't want that. Look it up yourself. ROTI, if you've never heard of it, right? Curry and roti. Some people are like, what? These are things you share because food is universal, right? We all have to eat. You understand? So bear with his administration. Give him time. There will be time to hold him accountable. There's 4 years. You can do that. That's okay. Hold him accountable. But what will be unacceptable is everyone screaming and not having any action behind their voice, right? So you can't sit there, criticize, and you haven't lent to the conversation. I can't repeat it enough. These black women will make it happen. I talked about Tiffany Cross. You think, Joy paved the way for Joyanne Reed paved the way for Tiffany Cross. You don't think Tiffany Cross is going to have other black people and she's not going to open the door for other black people? You think Karine Jean-Pierre, Simone Sanders, Dr. Nunez Smith, you don't think these people are going to open the door for other people? Nah, they're going to do exactly, what was allowed for them. Bear with them, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I ask. And, putting, Dr. Nunez Smith, making sure there's equity there. That's happening for a reason. Because COVID is not going to go away. But someone like Dr. Nunez Smith is going to make sure that how communities that otherwise are overlooked will be taken care of. And that's all we can hope for. So give them time. And in the meantime, wear your mask, wash your hand, and continue to social distance. Hip Hop Generation, we out.
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us.